Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. By way of brief introduction, I'm Brian Schubel and I work in the Institutional Advancement Office here at Salem State University. Before we kick off the event, a couple of housekeeping remarks. This is a webinar format, so speakers will not be able to see or hear you, but the chat function is available to ask questions, and please do. We will do our best to get all the questions in the time allotted. For further resources, please keep an eye on the bottom of your screen for helpful links. We'll be sending out a survey to follow up presentation. We would love your feedback so we can better plan for future events. We'd also like to thank the Salem State University Foundation Board for making this event possible. Now, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome the 14th president of Salem State University, John Keenan, with University Greetings and Update. President Keenan is a lifelong resident of Salem, Massachusetts, and a proud member of our community with over 20 years of service, both as a Massachusetts state legislator and an assistant district attorney before joining Salem State in 2014 as general counsel and vice president. John graduated from Salem Public Schools, and like 35% of Salem State students today, he is also a first in his family to attend college. Thank you for being here with us today, President Keenan. I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you, Brian, and hello, everyone, and a special hello to Salem State board members who are with us today. This year has surely been like none other at Salem State and beyond that I could ever have imagined. Together, we have been challenged with a global health crisis, social unrest, probably not has seen since the 60s. My gratitude goes out to the many Viking staff, alumni, and students who continue to work on the front lines, helping keeping us safe, educating our community members, and providing us with essential services. They have shown the kind of resilience that we've come to expect from our Viking family, and we could not be any prouder. Our campus priorities that we've established over the last several months. COVID has exacerbated the financial challenges for many of our students, and we are grateful to those who have stepped in to help. With the help of supporters, we have been able to deploy resources and remain flexible and responsive during these difficult times. Since March, over 400 donors have contributed to our student emergency funds, supporting more than 240 students. We are focused on increasing financial aid and scholarship as our students continue to need support, especially amid the economic downturn that this pandemic has brought. We are also committed to meeting students where they are and fully supporting them in their pursuit of a degree and a job. We are working towards making significant investments in proven models that provide foundational tools students need to pursue their interests, stay motivated, and realize their dreams. Programs and centers such as the Center for Academic Excellence, the Student Navigation Center, the Navigator app, support systems for our Black and Latinx students. Our experience has shown that when students feel a sense of community, they are more likely to succeed academically. We are currently working with the Commonwealth on a proposal to consolidate our campus footprint and provide for state-of-the-art laboratories that will energize our science and healthcare curriculum and benefit our faculty and students. In fact, just prior to this, I had a call with them to talk about the project. Appropriately referred to as SSU Bold, this initiative represents a dramatic leap forward in unifying our campus and increasing collaboration across disciplines. What has become very clear in recent months is just how important the Salem State education is to our students and just how much the world needs our graduates. Looking ahead, Salem State is focused on ensuring that we continue to be the source of opportunity in this region for generations to come. Our students seek to build a brighter future for themselves, their families, and their communities. Our alumni make outstanding contributions to the North Shore, to the Commonwealth, and to the world at large. Their success reverberates throughout the communities, and we are so proud to be part of it. Philanthropy plays an important role in strengthening the Salem State we know and love. Partnerships are vital to the success of our Vikings, and we are glad you are here with us today to connect and to hear more about the planned giving in the Crosby Society. Named after Alpheus Crosby, the school's second principal, they were principals back then, Crosby members are the key philanthropic leaders who share their loyalty and support with the university by including Salem State in their wills and other estate plans, helping us to continue Alpheus Crosby's powerful legacy of dedication to education and equality, principles we continue to live by. Thank you again for being here with us today and I look forward to seeing you again soon, in person, hopefully. Now I'll turn it back over to Brian, who will be introducing John Pastori, who will be leading today's discussion. And I want to say, John, as well, thank you for doing this and for describing Salem State as your dream factory. Brian?
Thank you so much, President Keenan. Yes, it is now my pleasure to introduce Richard Austin and John Pastori. Richard serves as Executive Director at Integrated Partners and specializes in working with entrepreneurs and Fortune 500 executives, building comprehensive strategies and financial solutions for their particularly complex situations. As the head of the Integrated Partners family office, he works with high net worth clients to build and expand their legacies, offering creative ideas for investment, estate and charitable gifting strategies designed to support them for generations to come. And John Pastori, Salem State's own, graduated from the university in 1994 with a degree in business. After graduation, he stayed connected to his alma mater as president of the Salem State Foundation Board, Salem State Alumni Association Board, and Bertillon School of Business Advisory Board. A private wealth manager with over 20 years of experience in the industry, John specializes in working with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals and business owners. He is a founding member of Integrated Financial Partners and currently serves as Senior Vice President and Private Wealth Manager, in which he oversees Integrated's professional partner program and consults with CPA and law firms as they integrate with wealth management and financial planning services into their core offerings. So that's enough for me. Again, thank you both so much for being here, and we all look forward to hearing what you have to share. Thanks again.
Brian, thanks a lot for the introduction. I was a little disappointed. I thought maybe we'd have a picture of John, as an alumni of Salem University.
I feel like I'm getting set up for something here, but okay. Hey, Rich, I'm sure there are pictures floating around Salem State of me, so don't even try to prompt them for that.
Yeah. They said they were.
Brian, thank you so much for that warm introduction. And President Keenan, it's an honor to be here back at Salem State, a place that we know and that we love so much. And thank you for everybody for taking time out of your day to find out how we could be a better supporter of Salem State University. It's a year of change, a lot going on right now, and there's a lot of opportunity because of the change. When I think about presenting to Salem State University, think about how we feel. And I think about how much the college or the university is given to all of us. But you know what? The college can't give what it doesn't have. And I brought my friend Richard Austin to present with me today because in his role leading our estate and business efforts for Integrated, he works with people and helps them become a better donor, a more efficient donor. And that's what we hope to bring across today. We'll certainly open up for questions towards the end. But our purpose today is to introduce some new concepts and educate you on what's going on. Brian made mention to our group, Integrated. We manage about $8 billion in assets now. We started it as one of the founding partners. And we work with many CPA firms and law firms with situations such as these. So I'm sure many on this video today are working with either financial professionals, working with attorneys, or working with CPAs. We certainly, might give you some ideas that you could bring back to them and be a better donor to Salem State University. Rich, shall we start the presentation?
Yeah. So, and just to add one other thing, so it's my pleasure to be here today, with John, talking to you, and it's, so any questions that you have, put it in the chat feature. And these are some of our favorite conversations. So we wish we were sitting there with you in person, but everyone's become so much more comfortable with Zoom. And as we work with our clients and just sharing some of the best practices that you can take back to your advisors and talking about, the process around charitable giving, that's our goal for today. So let us know if you have any questions, and we'd love to hear from you virtually. Thanks.
Again, when we think about Salem State University, we think about what can we do. And creating our legacy, and maybe our stories for some of us here today started at Salem State. And what I think about when we start thinking about legacy planning, we think about the complexity around it as well as the emotion. If you could move to the next slide, Rich. There are just so many pieces, when you're thinking about estate planning, and we feel that complexity is the challenge. And that's where any good financial advisor or accountant or lawyer might be able to guide the conversation. You have to think about first, what are my family goals? Do I have enough? Is it in the right places? Where do I take it from first? Do I have my plan secured? And we commonly feel that a concept that we introduce, necessary estate, what I need to live on to meet my needs in the lifestyle that I like, become accustomed to, and excess estate. Excess estate is money that we don't need to live our lifestyle, and money that we could possibly gift in many different forms. We have to take into consideration tax laws. Just recently, the CARES Act was enacted in March of 2020. We're going to talk about that today. Estate planning. Is my family okay? How are their needs met? And then lastly, charitable goals. And we'll talk about some opportunities that are unique this year in gifting, and maybe we could all make a donation based on some of these new rules. But also, who do I want to be as a philanthropist, and where do I want my dollars to go directly to make a difference?
Yeah, and just to add one thing, it's when you step back and you think about it, it's very easy to to make a cash gift at a certain time, but to sit back and think about you and your family's charitable goals, sometimes it gets complex. And the purpose, the starting point in the conversation is to move through that complexity. The tax law changes, the integration in the estate planning, and then balancing your family goals and your charitable goals. And and that's what conversations are for, with your network, with your family, with advisors.
So then we look at comprehensive financial planning and pulling it all together. As we mentioned, your own personal plan. You're looking at your cash flows. I think what the point we want to get across is Salem State is not looking for you to give more than you have, more thinking about efficiently giving what you don't need. And that starts with, like I said earlier, financial planning, cash flow and asset growth, an evaluation of your own personal financial situation, and then understanding the people that you have on your team, your estate plan attorney, your CPA, your financial advisor, or your asset manager. Creating a strategy that you feel comfortable, that you can withstand downturns in the market like we've just recently seen. This year is a fantastic year to talk about the emotion around investing. We started off the year and everything looked great. We had a 34% drop in the market. That was the most rapid and quick drop that we've seen in the history of the market, followed by an incredible recovery in the markets. Now, what really has decoupled is the economy, and a lot of people don't feel all that settled about what's going on Main Street, but Wall Street has done very, very well. I think there's a good financial advisor should help you understand why that decoupled and what's happening and where the opportunities lie, so that you can keep a steady strategy so that you can be a better donor. And then there's governance. So we talk a lot, especially Rich, about family governance. So what's going to happen to my children? What's going to happen to my legacy? How is it given away? And how much of my overall net worth is going to go to the government? We know that it's going to go to one of three places: your favorite charity, your family, or the IRS. And the joke in our office is that they're not going to name the cafeteria at the IRS building after you if it goes directly to the IRS. Rich, do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, those are a really good point. I mean, just the what John was talking about, starting with the financial plan, and the planning piece of it. It's like when you build a house, it's only as strong as the foundation. And so that plan that's put together is so important. From there, we look at strategies, and most of today's presentation is about one specific strategy: charitable legacy planning, charitable giving. And so, but when you move through that overall process from planning to strategy, working with advisors to make sure that creative ideas are brought and that, a plan is executed, and then governance around the family. On the strategy side, those strategies are, estate planning, charitable giving, income tax strategies, risk management, business planning, and, and they all kind of tie together. So, the plan takes, looks at, each one of those silos and pulls them together so that it's coordinated, amongst those planning areas.
So one of the places that we start as financial advisors, and any financial advisor should start with, asking 3 simple questions. The first is, are we okay? So if you're an individual or a couple and you're getting ready for retirement, or you're thinking about the last phases of your life or the last chapters, do I have the money? Do I have the resources I need to get through the phases of my life? The second question that we ask is your family okay? And Rich can talk a little bit about the tools that can ensure that your family is okay. Once we've progressed through those 2 stages, we start to think more globally. Is my community okay? And that's where the Crosby Society becomes an option, when we know that we have the excess estate. And Rich, can you talk a little bit about the planning tools that we help to support these 3 questions and to answer these 3 questions?
Yeah, so going back, so everything has a process, right? You go through the different steps. So we talked, previously about planning, then you get to, strategy, and before you get to advisory and governance. So on the strategy piece, when you're going through the different strategies, you go through the first layer, are we okay? The first question that's asked, is really about the matriarch and the patriarch of the family, and talking about financial independence. John started out the conversation about necessary versus excess estate, really understanding what that is and what it means to you and your family. Looking at, working with the team on income and estate tax, reduction strategies, long-term care, risk management, making sure that that foundation of the plan is like really strong. Then once that's solid and the goals are met, you move to the second layer, the second question. The second question is, my family okay? And it's defined differently for every family. Today's day and age, there's, different sizes, locations. Maybe it's not even a traditional family member. So you define that family and you make sure that they're okay. And that's anywheres from, depending on the wealth, anywheres from, strategies on, estate planning, forming a generational estate plan, maybe even, providing asset protection if it's important, to the family members. And if you're a business owner, and that business is one of the largest assets on the balance sheet, looking at that business succession plan for the benefit of the family. As you move through that pyramid and you push through those 2 questions, and, and not a lot of people really do the planning to kind of get to that step. But once you do, you get to the charitable planning side. Is my community okay? And it's such a fulfilling question to answer, and, what we're going to go through in the next couple of slides is really 4 steps in legacy planning and charitable giving, that you can ask yourself, whether it's a gift of $300 to a gift or a bequest of $1 million or more. You can follow that same process and think about it with you and your family to fulfill your personal and family charitable goals. So the path to charitable giving, really, as we work with clients, and we wanted to share with you today, it's pretty simple. And if you follow the steps, in order from left to right, establish charitable goals. Is that for you as an individual? Is it family? It's great to get the children and grandchildren involved in some of those decisions. It's, and John will talk about some situations and where this has been done, and it's been so rewarding to the family, in getting like additional family members involved, even if it's, giving a grandchild, a grant of like $50, for a certain organization and certain reasons why they would want to grant that. So establishing those charitable goals is really important from the beginning. And it can just be very simple at first, or depending on how complex it gets, there could be a mission statement that's set up for the family. Then you determine, now you have your goal set, now you determine what to give. And the reason why I put that next is, it's very simple to give cash, but going back to the planning, it's important to kind of think about other assets. So, cash is a great, asset to give. It's easy. But sometimes, in the plan, there's low basis assets, appreciated securities, where, even if it ties into the investment management or wealth management of the portfolio from a reallocation standpoint, what if you can avoid the tax on that reallocation, gift that to charity, and also obtain a charitable deduction. There's certain ideas and certain ways of giving that, meet, your personal charitable goals, but it's John and I always kind of bring it up and we're the tax idea, people that, we want to make sure that you fulfill your charitable goals, but, let's make sure that it's done in the most efficient manner. And then you decide, once you determine what to give, then it's when do you give it? Is it during your lifetime? Is it at your death? Is there a balance between the two? Do you have like a goal for, over the next 5 years or 10 years, of how much that you want to give? And then you start to define what that is, and, when we go back to some modeling, when you go back to look at some modeling and determining your necessary versus excess, your charitable giving is built into there, and you're balancing your family goals and your charitable goals together. So that's, and then deciding, when to give is the third piece of it. And then how to give, we'll spend some time today, from the most simple to the more complex. And it really depends on what you want to accomplish. From a simple, it's an outright gift to charity. Moving to the most complex, it might be a trust structure or a foundation. Sometimes there's a reason to set up a foundation we'll talk about later on today, whether it's from, a large gift or, or international charitable goals, and, it really depends on any step of a process, whether you're doing charitable planning or other strategies. The goal typically should be to make it as simple as possible, but sometimes it gets complex because it fits your goals.
When we talk about establishing charitable goals, it really begins with a family discussion and understanding truly what you have to give and what's the most efficient to give. Rich mentioned just a minute ago, low basis securities. When we work with clients, one of the things that we really try to create is a format of open communication and financial literacy. And what that does is when people start to have an understanding of the rules and the tools, then they can understand better how they can achieve the goal. So, it could be as simple as Rich said, just saying, hey, who do we want to give to this holiday season? There's a big divide right now. There's people that have done very well in the pandemic, and there are industries that have been completely wiped out. That makes for a unique situation. I don't know the entire audience today, but there are people that might have received PPP money, and they're not taking into consideration the tax ramification of receiving that. In charitable giving in this year, that they might not have had a lot of expenses, is a great idea. But it's understanding who you want to help first and understanding the charitable goal. And that can be, again, as simple as a dinner conversation, or with our high net worth clients, some of them actually create a committee with their family, and they all bring ideas to the table about who they would like to help. And then we start the idea of how do we help? Rich, I'm sure you're going to touch on it, but you mentioned low basis stock. This year was a great year in the market. And as we talked about that decoupling, the economy, there's a lot of people that need help. Salem State has done a lot of things that they didn't typically have to do in a typical year, and they need money. So how do we get some of maybe that low basis stock that we have gains in, and not pay the taxes on it, but do something that could be meaningful for one of the charities that we've identified in our charitable goals?
And so when you're looking at so one of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking, John, is as we're working with clients, and I think it took me a little while to learn this, as not every client is motivated in the same way on charitable planning. So, and the mistake that's often made is just asking a simple question and stopping there. So how much do you give to charity each year? But the conversation doesn't stop there. It's really on the goal piece. It's really understanding the motivation behind the charitable gift, and as we think about it, it really falls into three different, a balance of three different things. And some clients, it's totally philanthropy, and when you bring up the income and estate tax savings, not that they don't want the income and estate tax savings, but some clients, it's really just talking about the philanthropic, the charitable goal. I'm not going to try to say that word again. All right. So the philanthropic goal. And, and looking at that, and other clients, it's a balance of, 2 or 3 of them. And it's really understanding you as an individual and, what your charitable legacy is. John, did you want to touch on 1 or 2 of the things that the CARES Act has provided from an income and estate tax standpoint for clients this year?
Absolutely. So the CARES Act was enacted in this year in March of 2020, and what it did, excuse me, is it changed some of the rules around gifting, and it's also this year, for example, one of the things that we need to be aware of is if we made as an individual a gift of $300, that comes off the top line, whereas typically, if we go and we write a check from our checkbook, very inefficient way of gifting, but if we did that, we would say we wrote $300 to our favorite charity, Salem State University. The deduction would be whatever our adjusted gross income, so whatever our tax rate is, we would get that percentage of that credit towards our taxes. When we say that the gift is top line, that means that all 300 come off of our AGI. So if we owe, if we owe $1,000 in taxes, we can take $300 off right off the top line. Now for couples, you might be asking yourself, does that double? And the answer is yes. So because of that, this year, great time to give as a couple, $600 comes off the top line. So for everybody that serves the Salem State community, or that's on this call, or that's on a board, might be a simple way to just start being a little bit more philanthropic. Maybe you gave $100, and that's great. Maybe you move that up to $300, and you'll see a real benefit for that in your taxes. And again, as a couple, $600. Any other thoughts that come to mind from the CARES Act, Rich, that we want to talk about?
No, I like that example. It's just so simple. Even if you're not itemizing, you can married couple can give $600, cash, and get a tax benefit to it.
The other thing too is keep in mind. I'm sorry if I didn't mean to jump in, but keep in mind too that RMDs are waived this year. So anybody that's taking the required minimum distributions off of their IRAs, That's waived. So think about that. Maybe don't take it. Maybe it's a year that you can gift instead of take it. Take that required minimum distribution. Maybe you use those two, the 300 or the 600, to work that through on your taxes this year. So just a couple thoughts in coupling them together.
Yeah, and there's been some other benefits just with the amount of cash that you can, gift to charity this year. Usually it's a limitation of 60% of your adjusted gross income, and they increased that to 100%. So the CARES Act has really expanded some of the charitable provisions that, it's not our intent to go so detailed into it and cause you guys to go into a, take a nap. So, but there's opportunities.
Rich, what's that mean that they can gift that much this year? Can you give a little bit more of an example?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So so let's say, for example, you are, you're married, your total adjusted gross income, that means your taxable income, your interest, your dividends, everything that's on that page 1 of your tax return, is, at the bottom, is the line that adds it all up, and it's adjusted gross income. That adjusted gross income is, let's say it's $200,000. Typically in the past, the IRS said you can give a cash gift to charity and get a benefit for it, but we're going to limit you to 60% of your adjusted gross income, which is a high enough number. But this year they're allowing you to give up to 100% of your AGI, your adjusted gross income. So if your adjusted gross income is $200,000, you could essentially give $200,000 directly to a charity. There's some limitations, of how it's given, but cash directly to a charitable organization and get a deduction for $200,000. Now, where we've seen those expanded percentages really taking in impact, is where some clients are either they're selling their businesses, or there's additional income that came in that, they had some charitable goals and they didn't need it for, their, for their necessary estate. And, there's certain circumstances where that's going to make sense. Most clients, they're not going to be giving away all their income.
But Rich, just to kind of elaborate or to build off that idea, if somebody has an income of $200,000, they're allowed to give AGI of $200,000. They're allowed to gift $200,000. But let's just say that they had a good year in the stock market. They bought Moderna, and it's gone through the roof. Or if they bought Apple and they've gone through the roof,
Yep.
They're allowed to give that and still get the preferential tax treatment if it's a qualified 501(c)(3).
Yeah, so we're going to talk about stock, and that differs a little bit from cash. So that's a good point that you're bringing up. So stock has different rules around it, but the nice thing about giving stock to charity, you still get a deduction, but you don't pay the capital gains, the embedded capital gains on the unrealized gain. So it's a double win, and maybe it fits with the diversification of a concentrated stock position or reallocation of your portfolio. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, you're welcome. One second, just trying to go to the next slide. So then we've talked about charitable goals, right? And, and now the next piece of it is, determining what to give. I mean, simply you think of it as cash, securities, typically low basis securities, and other assets. What are other assets? Other assets could be real estate, a business interest. Some, when you start to, there's some difficulty around other assets. Sometimes they're not publicly traded. So you're going to need to get a valuation for those assets. Sometimes the way that a business is held, the type of entity, there's some complications around it, but it's a great strategy. And I'll give you an example. So John and I work with a lot of business owners, and part of the process is, helping them through the sale of their business, in different stages. And part of the charitable conversation that comes up with them often is before typically before the letter of intent is signed, but definitely before the deal closes, is if they have a charitable desire, and we can do it, is funding a charitable goal prior to the sale of the business. So just like the low basis securities, the stock that you would hold, your business is a capital asset. And so transferring part of that business, prior to the sale of the business, you'll get a tax deduction in a year where your adjusted gross income is probably be the highest that it's been maybe ever, or for at least a long time. So you'll get a tax deduction, and you avoid the capital gain recognition on the on the unrealized gain in the sale of your business. So there's and it really just coordinates well with clients on and thinking about what to give. John, do you want anything?
No, so just to clarify the point, Rich, if someone's thinking about if they're inside of a window, because right now there's more money out there to buy businesses than there actually are businesses to purchase. We thought that would kind of turn around after COVID, but there's still a lot of private equity money in the marketplace. So, Rich, just to kind of elaborate on what you're saying, if someone owns a business, they're getting ready to sell the business, to liquidate the business, it's not a bad idea to talk to your advisor about charitable gifting strategies to some of your favorite charities before you make the sale.
Yeah, and it's that planning gets done well beforehand, because in our experience, and we just had this happen the other day where it wasn't a client that we were working with prior to the sale of their business, but the business is being sold. They're within a couple of weeks of selling the business. It's not business. To change the structure of a business while you're in the midst of a sale of a capital asset the size of a business, whether it's $1 million, $5 million, or $10 million or more, it's going to hold up the deal, and no one's going to do it. So those conversations happen earlier, and it's part of that initial step on the plan, and then it's one of the strategies.
Thanks for clarifying that, Rich.
So then we talk about when to give. Is it lifetime or death? And so you set the charitable goals, you determine what to give. Now, when do you give it? Or is there a balance between the two? Is there an amount that you feel very strong about giving in the next couple of years? Maybe it's a 5-year plan, or maybe it's a 10-year plan. Or maybe it's a certain amount that goes to certain charities, during your life. And, and then maybe there's a certain piece that's built in to the estate plan, upon your death. And then how does that impact, the family goals, the balance between the family goals and the charitable goals? So really, I always find it's probably because I'm a numbers person, but the numbers make a plan seem more real. Just as if you're putting together like an estate plan, your will, your revocable trust. Like if you don't have some numbers to look at it from like conservative assumptions now, 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, it brings those words to life, and it kind of shows what the plan is actually doing.
And Rich, can we talk a little bit about how the death taxes might be changing?
Yeah. So a point before we get to the death taxes, estate taxes, is at death, one of the best assets to give at death is an IRA asset, right? So, and we'll talk a little bit, about, we could talk about that, on the next slide, but on the estate taxes. So you were in a bubble if you haven't seen like an article on like estate taxes, and everyone's putting the fear in everyone's to do estate planning before the year end, and all the and it's a small community of experts that I've had the privilege of speaking to and listening to for like the last 20 years, and nationally, and you kind of get to know who's the alarmists and who has more of a moderate feel. I'm more of a moderate, and so putting the estate taxes, right? The estate tax exemption right now is $11,580,000. That's for one individual. If you're married, double that. So unless you have an estate, from a federal standpoint, more than 23 million right now, if you pass away, soon, there's no estate tax. The problem is Biden's made some proposals, to make a change to that. And there we get to where we started the conversation today: complexity, uncertainty. What's going to happen? We don't even know who's going to control the Senate yet, right? So I think we know that there's a Democrat president. No, we do know. And so in whether the Senate is controlled by the Republicans or the Democrats, I think it just comes down to a simple approach. And I heard somebody kind of talking about it this way the other day. It's really just start with your goals. What do you want to do? Even if the estate tax stays where it is today, and or it gets reduced to 5 million, just think about, what you want to accomplish and put that plan in place, and then model it out against, get back to the numbers and how does it affect you, your family, your charitable goals, and how does it benefit? And it just, it's not forced by a potential change, but maybe that's a good reason to kind of take a look at it.
And even if they make no changes to that, the new administration makes zero changes to the current estate tax, the federal estate tax structure. That's scheduled to sunset, right, at the end of 2024, Rich?
Yeah, 2026. So great point. Yeah, sorry. I'm just here to fact check you, John. So
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So 2026. So even if Congress does nothing, which is possible, 2026, we're going to have it's going to go back down to 5 million. So there's a high probability that's going to happen anyways. So with our clients, we've been having, and that change happened a couple of years ago in the law that was put into place. So think about where we are from a budget deficit standpoint, from other priorities, with all the funding that's happened through the pandemic and, other priorities that are going on from a national standpoint, the likelihood of, crazier things have happened. So I don't want to be on record saying that it was one way or another. I'll take a moderate approach, but, most likely, I don't think that we're going to see the estate tax change being at the top of the list when you're going to have, concessions made on both sides of the parties.
Perfect. So we'll put you down on record that you tell us that it's going to change. Thank you.
Exactly.
And the other thing, if you're thinking about it, hey, I'm well beneath the federal thresholds. There's also something that you need to be aware of here in the state of Massachusetts that we have in Massachusetts. If you're a Mass resident, one of the most aggressive state estate death tax. How it works is it under $1 million. There's no tax, and then after that, it's retroactive back to $1. So it's one of the most aggressive state estate tax as well. So that kind of goes back to our point that we made earlier, which is your money's going to go one of three places: your family, your favorite charity, or the IRS. And the IRS comes in a couple different flavors: federal and state.
Yeah. And on this slide here, it's just really like a summary of what we've already talked about. Giving cash and the benefit this year of that increase of 100% of your adjusted gross income, giving low basis stock, getting a deduction, and not paying the gain, paying the tax on that unrealized appreciation. And then the last two is a bequest at death. So basically, they're a bequest at death. And if you looked at, take for example, an IRA asset. So doing a beneficiary designation to a charity, to Salem State University. Let's start with like $1 million IRA. And let's assume that the 40% federal estate tax applies, and maybe the exemption's now 3.5 or 5 million, or depending on the situation, but that $1 million is subject to estate taxes. So 40% federal estate tax, 16% Massachusetts estate tax. So a total estate tax of 56%. So that $1 million IRA is now $560,000. Is now $440,000 because $560,000 was paid for estate taxes. So you do get a benefit from an income tax standpoint for that deduction for the estate taxes, but the income taxes are still owed. and they made a change to the law on the IRAs that IRA has to be paid out within 10 years. So the income tax on that at 40% is another $176,000. So if you're in a numbers coma right now, because everything that I went through, I'm just going to summarize it for you. The total tax that's paid from an income and estate tax standpoint on $1 million IRA, subject to both estate and income taxes, is $736,000. So the balance to your family is $264,000. So if for you that for everyone that's more of a percentage person, 74% went to pay taxes and 26% went to family. There's ways to do planning to get 100% of that to charity, to maximize value to your family, to coordinate those family and charitable goals, where you maximize it. And that IRA, that 401k plan is, is the best asset upon your death to leave charity. So determining how to give, there's a lot of different vehicles, which we don't have time today to go into like all the details of those different vehicles, but just to put it in perspective. So it's the last piece of it. You set the charitable goals, you determined what to give, you determined when to give, and now we're talking how to give. So it could be a direct gift right to charity, gifting that stock, right to a charitable organization. Or maybe you decide, you know what, I want to take advantage from a tax standpoint and give to a donor advised fund, because I want to give for the next 5 years. And my charitable goal is $10,000 a year. So I'm going to put $50,000 of low basis stock into a donor advised fund. Avoid the capital gains tax, but I'm in control. I'm going to direct $10,000 a year to a charitable organization, to Salem State University, whoever you choose from that donor advised fund on an annual basis. Or maybe
also be a good strategy too for somebody that needs a big exemption in a single year, but doesn't want to make the gift all in 1 year. Is that correct, Rich?
Exactly. So you get the benefit of a couple of benefits. One is you get to get the tax deduction currently. So for those, even if you're not itemizing, that increase in deduction will be more than the standard deduction. So then you take that in 1 year, but then you control the charitable gift to the charitable organization over the next couple of years. And then moving on the complexity on how to give, you've got a private foundation, and so that's for larger gifts. We have a client right now that we're working with that has international charitable goals, and the donor advised fund is not going to work in that situation. And so we're looking, so we're setting up a private foundation, with that client. And then the charitable remainder trust and charitable lead trust, those are great strategies for like, for example, the charitable remainder trust will balance your, a charitable remainder trust will even work for a client that wants to smooth out income over not time, that needs to sell a low basis asset, but doesn't want to give it all away to charity. So going back to those charitable goals, but still get like a little bit of a charitable deduction. So that's a great strategy. And a charitable lead trust, that's a strategy, where if you want to combine a really big income tax deduction and a high tax year, with some legacy and estate planning, that's a strategy that pulls those goals together. I wanted to, John, do you have any other points on that slide?
Oh, not really. I just think the way that's laid out is that there's kind of a progression and there's steps to the path to charitable giving and the tools that we can use. So, you might say family foundation. There are turnkey family foundation solutions. If you're saying, hey, I'm a little bit beyond the donor advised fund, but I want to start to utilize or think about my own family foundation because of the way that you want to gift or the way that maybe your business is set up. So those are things that you start. It's kind of a progression how you move through those. And I think you laid that out well, Rich.
Thanks. And I think at this point in the presentation, we have 8 minutes remaining. I'd love to open it up for, questions that are coming through and just, address those questions.
We have one, and I think it's directed to me. It's a good question. It's what makes me proud to give back to Salem State. And I mean, it's a pretty simple answer. It's, I wouldn't be where I am without Salem State University. You heard the president earlier in his remarks. I've named Salem State the Dream Factory. And for me, the reason I give is, one, it's especially in a year like this, there's opportunities and there's new tools that we just described to you that allow us to give and make it tax efficient. But the work that's going on here, it's one of the few charitable organizations or the few charities that you could give to that hits so many different areas. If you care about the betterment of our community, give to Salem State University. If you care about nursing, give to Salem State University. If you care about growing our business core, give to Salem State University. It just has so many tentacles and impacts so many areas that it's just a fantastic multi-dimensional place to donate money.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, and I was just thinking, like, just generally and specifically to Salem State, if you think about all the universities and college students, and how they've been impacted by the pandemic, and I know I've had some conversations, with individuals about, the families, losing their jobs, financially not being able to afford, college. I mean, having those funds available to assist, students in these times is so important as well.
So at this point, if anybody has any other questions, we'll be happy to field them. You can just type them into the chat feature of the presentation.
Thank you both so much. We can give it another minute or so here and see if we have some more incoming questions. But I just want to let people know that our office, Institutional Advancement, this is part of what we do. This is part of the conversations we have with our alumni and donors and friends. And oh my goodness, and there's the dream. There's the start of the dream right there.
I knew it happened. I knew they had one.
That's because somebody asked the question to make sure that I really graduated.
Oh, stop.
Wait, are we sure that's John? Nice.
Heading off for success. So no, but the thoughtfulness that you both approach this work with, I just want to let our folks that have joined us here today, that's how we approach our work in the office and how we think about this. So we think these things through with you in interests and ways of partnership and where you want to have your impact and what's meaningful to you and what is important here at Salem State. So please know that. And again, just many thanks to the Salem State Foundation Board, our Vice President Cheryl Crounce, the board members who have joined us here today, and past President Pastori and Rich Austin. So we don't seem to have any other questions coming in, but please stay tuned. Feel free to reach out with any questions you might have to our team. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great day. And
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for allowing us to talk to you about something that's dear to us, in one of our favorite conversations that we have, with our clients. And so, and I just wanted to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season, and a really great, next year.
And thank you all for your time and your contributions to a wonderful institution.
Thank you both. Have a great day, all.